Hi guys, so this video continues on from yesterday when we looked at chapter 4.1, why does the wind blow? Today we're going to be looking at how strong is the wind, how do we measure wind, how can we look at weather maps, which is chapter 4.2 of Jacaranda. So we've got three main and important areas we're going to be looking at for today's class. One, how is wind shown on a weather map? How to read wind symbols, and what is the Beaufort scale. Okay, that's a really important slide to understand, and could be one you could pause now and to write down those three things so that you can ensure that you get those out of today's lesson. Differences in air pressure lead to variations in the strength of the wind. So we learnt about variations in air pressure yesterday. We've got high pressure and low pressure. So the low pressure is rising and the high pressure is heavy, so it's closer to the Earth's surface. You can work out the strength of the wind by looking at weather maps, the behaviour of objects, or by using instruments designed to measure the strength of the wind. Okay, so there's a few different reasons as to how we can work out the strength of the wind. Winds are named according to their source. Now this is an interesting one. So this means that a northerly wind is coming from the north and heading south, and the southerly wind is coming from the south. Now, as I was a kid about your age, I didn't really understand this, but it took me a while to grasp that. So a northerly wind, you might think is actually going north, but it's incorrect. It's coming from the north. Northerly wind is coming from the north, heading south. And southerly wind is coming from the south, heading north. It's important to understand. How is wind shown on a weather map? The average weight of air is about 1013 millibars. Measurements higher than this indicate areas of high pressure. Here the air is sinking, which we already know. Measurements lower than 1013 millibars indicate areas of low pressure. Here the air is rising. Now I've got down the bottom there a definition of isobars, which is important for you to understand, and I would pause and write this into your exercise book. So they're lines on a map that join places with the same air pressure, which we're about to see. Now this is a standard weather map, which you might see something similar to on your evening news when you watch the weather report. And all these lines running on this map with these numbers, they're called our isobars. If you study the isobars in a weather map, you'll notice that they are not evenly spaced, which we can see from this map below. The wind is strongest in the southern region of this map, where the isobars are close together, and gentler in the northern parts of the map, where the spacing between them is much greater. So we can tell from this map that in the southern region, the wind is quite strong because the isobars are close together. However, around Darwin and Townsville and Alice Springs, there's not much wind because they're actually quite far apart. So that's how we can tell the strength of a wind, by looking at a weather map. Can you see there that the air pressure is 1028 in Perth? See, that equals high air pressure. So the air is sinking. Remember this slide? So anything above 1013 is an area of high pressure. Anything below 1013 millibars indicates an area of low pressure. So anything above 1013 is high, anything below 1013 is low. So conversely, if we look at around Melbourne and Hobart, we see the air pressure is 992. That's a low air pressure. The air is rising. We can see on this isobar, these isobars are quite far apart. This indicates that the wind is weak. However, this arrow, we can see that the isobars are quite close together. That indicates that the wind is strong. How to read wind symbols. So how to read wind symbols on a weather map. Okay, so this is a wind symbol, which you might see on a weather map sometimes. So we've got a tail, so we can see that the first arrow there says The small tail indicates the speed of the wind. Now, depending on how many tails there are, which we're about to see in a moment, indicates the speed of the wind. The direction, we can see our second arrow there, and the longer tail indicates the direction. The arrow, not used on actual weather maps, shows the direction the wind is moving. This is a westerly wind blowing from the west. So remember, we've got our north, our south, our east and our west. This one's starting from the west and going east. Westerly, starting from the west, going east. Now this will make a little bit more sense. So these again are weather symbols that indicate the strength of the wind in knots. So knots is the unit to measure wind speed, just like kilometers is used to measure speed of cars. So this one here would probably be similar to this one there. So I've got our tail there, that's our tail, that's the tail there, the direction of the wind and the direction of the wind. As I was saying, the amount of tails indicates the strength of the wind. 2 tails, we're looking at 18 to 22 knots. 2.5 tails, 23 to 27. 4 full tails, 38 to 42. And then we get into this coloured in triangle formation that indicates very strong wind. And a circle obviously is meaning very calm, 0 to 2 knots. Okay, and the last thing we want to take out of today's lesson is the Beaufort scale. So the Beaufort scale relates wind speed to the observable movement of objects within the environment. So looking at the environment around us, the Beaufort scale tells us what type of wind speed we have, and it gives an indication from 0 to 12. So 0 up here is calm, less than 2 kilometers. Smoke rises vertically if someone has a fire lit in their chimney, and it works its way up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we can see that 12, there's a hurricane and a cyclone. So the winds are greater than 120 kilometers, widespread devastation. Everything between 0 and 12. So there's just some lines to indicate the direction. And that concludes today's lesson. So just recapping, we looked at how is wind shown on a weather map, how to read wind symbols, and what is the Beaufort scale.